For the grim years were removed from the face of Aragorn, and he seemed clothed in white, a young lord tall and fair, and he spoke words in the Elvish tongue to one whom Frodo could not see. Arwen vani melda, namarie, he said. And then he drew a breath, and returning out of his thought, he looked at Frodo and smiled. Here is the heart of Elvendom on earth, he said, and here my heart dwells ever, unless there be a light beyond the dark roads that we still must tread, you and I. Come with me. And taking Frodo's hand in his, he left the hill of Ciaran Amroth, and came there never again as a living man. My Gulvanan and well met, my friends. Yoistin here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we will be taking a look at the region and history of Lothlórien, the Golden Wood, a land of elves in Middle-earth. For more information beyond this video, please check out the related articles and videos in the description and cards above, as they are related to or helped in the creation of today's video. Lothlórien is an elven land that I've wanted to talk about for some time, so thank you all for joining me today. Let us begin our tale. In the Elder Days, after the awakening of the firstborn children of Ilúvatar during the Years of the Trees, the Eldar began their journey westwards towards Valinor. However, some of the elves did not attempt the journey, and some who did remained behind in the lands they traveled through, instead of coming to the uttermost west. Of these elves, there were some who became known as the Nandor, meaning those who go back in Quenya. A group of these elves did not cross the Misty Mountains, and they founded Lendoranand, the Vale of the Land of the Singers. This land was west of the River Endwine, northeast of the River Nimrodel, and on both sides of the River Celebrant. Lendoranand was an appropriate name, for the Nandor were of the Teleri, or Lindar, as they were also called, meaning singers, in Quenya. These Nandor and those who dwelt in Greenwood the Great would become known as the Sylvan Elves, or Wood Elves. These elves would dwell there for ages to come. However, the land does not truly enter into the annals of Middle-earth's history until the Second Age. After the destruction of Beleriand and the War of Wrath, the Sindarin elves Amdir of Doriath and his son Amroth did not sail west, and they lived in Lindon for a time. They soon opted to rule themselves, rather than staying in the land of High King Gil-galad of the Noldor, so they removed to Lendoranand, and ruled the Sylvan elves of that land, who no longer had native princes to rule them. This caused somewhat of a strain between how some of the Nandor viewed the Sindar and Noldor. Nimrodel of the Nandor would be one such elf who viewed the Sindar and Noldor poorly. Similarly, Orifer and his son Thranduil, who were also Sindarin elves from Doriath, would go to the Greenwood and rule over the Sylvan elves of that forest. After King Amdir and his son Amroth came to Loranand, the language of that people became Sindarin. During the rule of King Amdir, the Noldo Galadriel, daughter of Finarfin, her Sinda husband Celeborn, and their daughter Celebrian, made contact with Lothlórien, and eventually moved to live there in 1350 of the Second Age by way of Khazad-dûm. Eventually, the 3 elven rings would be crafted by Celebrimbor in Eregion in 1590, one of which, Nenya, the Ring of Adamant, would be given to Galadriel, and the power of that ring will come into play later in the story. Sometime in the Second or early to mid-Third Age, but before the creation of the Flet upon Ciaran Amroth by Amroth himself, but after Galadriel had come to Lendoranand, she planted the Malorn nuts given to her by High King Gil-galad. Thus the Malorn trees grew, and the elves would build these flets or homes in and upon them, and they would live up in the trees. After the Malorn trees grew, the land would be given many new names because of them. Lorelendornan, the Valley of Singing Gold in Quenya, Loranande, the Valley of Gold in Quenya, Glornon and Nan Lower, both meaning Valley of Gold in Sindarin, Loranand, meaning Valley of Gold, possibly in Nandoran, and of course, Lothlórien, the Lorien of the Blossom in a Sindarin-Quenya hybrid, and Lorien, meaning Dreamland in Quenya, likely named after the Gardens of the West in Valinor. Man, that took a lot of takes to get those right. Anyway, originally Tolkien meant for Loranand to be the ancient and original name of the Nandor for the land, but that was before the creation of the story of how Galadriel brought the Malorn nuts and planted them, which changes things as Loranand refers to the gold of the Malorn trees itself. Anyway, after the fall of Eregion, other elves amongst the Noldor and Sindar would migrate into Lothlórien. In the late years of the Second Age, the War of the Last Alliance would occur, and the elves of Lothlórien joined the muster of the Free Peoples. King Amdir and his forces, in a terrible turn, would be cut off from the greater host in the Battle of Dagorlad, and half of Omdir's host perished in the dead marshes. Omdir himself would be one of the slain, and his son Amroth would be made the new king of Lothlórien. Going on now into the Third Age, King Amroth would build a flet atop a malorn tree upon a great hill, and this would be named Ciaran Amroth, Amroth's Mound. Ciaran Amroth had originally been a mound that was piled by the elves as a place to watch Dol Guldur across the Anduin, and the Talain or flets were after a time made permanent. Eventually, Eleanor and Nifredil flowers grew upon the hill. However, Amroth and his love Nimrodel would grow weary of Lothlórien and the world, and they would go south after the awakening of Durin's Bane and the exile of the dwarves from Moria, so that they might take a ship into the west, but they fell into peril and sadness, as it is told in the Lay of Nimrodel. I go more into their story in the video, The Tale of Amroth and Nimrodel. Without a king, Galadriel and Celeborn became the Lord and Lady of the Wood, and they established Caras Galadhon, the capital city of Lórien. With the power of Nenya, Galadriel kept the Golden Wood pure, safe, and preserved, and with her centuries of elves and the power of their ring, evil was not allowed to enter the realm, or if on the rare occasions such evil came, they would be harried by the elves. Besides, most if not all elves lived in flets upon the great malorn trees, where they could hardly be seen, let alone injured by their enemies. Without the Dark Lord having the use of his one ring, Galadriel freely used her ring to do much good for Lothlórien. The Golden Wood prospered under the Lord and Lady for over 1,000 years, and it would be home to many important events in the late Third Age. On Eorl's ride southward to aid Gondor in the Battle of the Field of Celebrant in 2510, a mist came forth from Lothlórien, or Dwymordine, the Vale of Phantoms, as the Eotheid called it, and it shielded them from the gloom of Mirkwood and Dol Guldur, aiding the Eotheid, but they still did not trust the Golden Wood or its lady. In 2980, 1 year shy of a millennium after Amroth and Nimrodel fled from Lothlórien, Aragorn and Arwen, the granddaughter of Galadriel, plighted their troth or were engaged upon Ciaran Amroth, making that a place of great importance for both of these characters, and Aragorn gave to her the Ring of Barahir. In 3017 of the Third Age, Aragorn passed by Lothlórien after he had captured Gollum on his way to Mirkwood, and Gandalf received word of this and changed his course from the Shire to meet with Aragorn and Gollum in Mirkwood. Finally, we come to the events of Lothlórien during the time of the War of the Ring. The Fellowship of the Ring passed through Moria and came into the Golden Wood after losing Gandalf the Great to Durin's Bane, the Balrog of Moria. They came to the edge of the wood, and after Legolas shared the Lay of Nimrodel with the Fellowship, they met the Marchwarden Haldir and his elves, who would take the company blindfolded into Lothlórien until such measures were no longer needed. Eventually, Aragorn saw Ciaran Amroth once again, and he recalled his engagement to Arwen before leaving that wonderful place forever. Eventually, the company was brought into Caras Galadhon, where they met with Galadriel and Celeborn. Frodo and Sam looked into Galadriel's mirror, and much that could be was revealed to the hobbits. Galadriel showed Nenya to Frodo, and Frodo offered her the One Ring, but she refused and passed her test, knowing that she would go into the west. After all of this, the Fellowship set out from Lothlórien with many gifts and the parting song Numarie, which was sung by Galadriel. However, the importance of Lothlórien went on, for soon after the company left, Gwaihir, the Wind Lord of the Great Eagles, brought Gandalf to Lothlórien, after he was returned to life and was found atop Celebdil by the Great Eagle. Gandalf was healed, clothed in white, and given a new staff before he set off for the Fangorn Forest. After not quite a month later, Sauron brought attacks to the Golden Wood. A few days before the Battle of the Pelennor Fields in the south, Sauron sent orcs to invade Lothlórien from Dol Guldur on March 11th of 3019, but they were driven off. On March 15th, another assault came to Lórien, and on the 22nd, a third assault commenced. But on March 25th, Sauron was defeated, and the One Ring was destroyed. Although Sauron had attacked the Golden Wood 3 times, he had not the power to throw down the elves of that land unless he himself had come there. Thus, some few days later, Celeborn led the host of Lórien over the Anduin in many boats, and they took Dol Guldur, and Lady Galadriel threw down the walls, laid bare its pits, and destroyed it, like Luthien of old did to Tol in Gowerhoth. Thranduil and Celeborn met then in Mirkwood, and renamed the forest Aren Losgallen, the Wood of Green Leaves. Thranduil held the forest north of the Narrows to the mountains, and Celeborn took what was south of the Narrows and named it East Lórien. But after this time, the light and songs in Lórien faded, for the power that preserved that land of old was within Nenya, and it was no more. A couple years later, Galadriel took the ship into the west, and the age came to its end. In the Fourth Age, Celeborn continued to rule for a time until he grew weary and left for Rivendell. After that, the population continued to decrease, and finally, in the year 121 of the Fourth Age, Arwen, who had returned to Lothlórien after the death of her husband Aragorn Elessar, passed away on the hill of Ciaran Amroth, leaving her own green grave there until the world is changed. By that time, none still lived in Lothlórien, for the days of the elves were over. Thus, we come to the end of our tale about Lothlórien, the golden wood that preserved some of the essence of the Elder Days within it. From the history and tale of Lothlórien, we see how we may preserve and protect much that was and is still fair in our world. All things must end, true, but while there is life, there is yet hope, and the beauties and wonders of the world might be saved as they were in Lothlórien. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. What are your thoughts, questions, additions, and corrections about Lothlórien? Lórien shows us the beauty and essence of the elves and the Elder Days, even as they were in the waning years of that kindred during the Third Age. I really love that about Lórien. Please check out our music channel, Facebook, Twitter, merch, and Patreon for our podcast and Discord server. Links are all in the description below. A huge shout out to our Valor tier patrons over on Patreon, Adrian De la Torre, Chris Ortner, Peter Sheppard, and Kyle Wetzel. Thank you guys so much for your support for the channel, it means so much to me. Finally, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the Free Peoples today, and I'll see you all again next week with a new Middle-earth video of your choosing. I left a poll up on the community tab with a couple of topics I had in mind, and I'll let you all decide what is coming next week. Rest assured, I plan to make all of these videos at some point regardless that are on that poll. Everyone, as always, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one, my great friends.